I have here for your listening pleasure and to activate your inner wisdom about what is right and what is not as right. Carrie Kelly, the founder of Citizen Well, also the ex-executive director of Off the Mat Into the World, which you experienced the last 2 days, and a bazillion other things with amazing stories. She has an amazing TED Talk that now you've done 2 of them. So, I mean, wow. And Carrie was a featured speaker, and I've been working with Skippy Mesro. Do you want me to say Upton? Okay, Upton Mesro. The best dressed man in Aspen.
Yeah. Yes.
Skippy is about to turn 30 next month, and so we celebrate these wonderful decades. He's actually blows me away because he is in his 20s, and he's the most civically engaged, active person in this town and almost anywhere that I've ever lived.
Thank you.
And so he's been a joy. He's been helping us with the Aspen City of Wellbeing, which is the project that all of this is supporting. And Carrie Kelly also has been an advisor on Aspen City of Wellbeing. And we're going to talk about democracy and well-being today. We're going to have a conversation, and maybe we'll have a chance for questions, just depending on time. So I'm going to sit down. And Carrie, would you like to say something?
No.
I want you to introduce yourself. Tell us one thing that's surprising about you that people might not know.
Oh, God.
People that know you wouldn't even know. Or just most of these people wouldn't know.
I guess what I would say is that, so I'm in this thing called politics now, but I was not born political. I was born a goody two-shoes, a perfectionist, and then eventually a yoga teacher. So I was on this path that I never thought would lead me to politics, but very much inevitably has, because I believe that the political is personal and the personal is political. And if you do this work deeply enough, you can't not engage politically in some way or another. And so I'm sort of like an unexpected, I almost want to say, like, for those of you who are like, I don't know how to get political, like, I'm that person who just like elbowed my way to the boardroom and said, I want to get political because I have to and because it's my responsibility.
Thank you. Skippy, what's something that people might not know about you in Aspen? You live here, so this is harder. Because I know your Instagram feed,
really big
and we all
town.
know. We've seen your social media. So go ahead. What kind of hair products?
Too many.
We're all wondering.
Too many.
Too many. Yes. Okay. Well.
No, I think I actually try to live a really open life with my community and my friends as much as is possible, in large part because that was not how I was raised. I was raised in a place that was supportive but very confining. And so coming to Aspen has really allowed me to sort of unleash the inner me, and that's been really gratifying. So thank you guys all for that.
That's great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Giovanni, once again. It's interesting because Skippy, not necessarily, you wouldn't call yourself a yogi necessarily. Now you are because you've been to a few yoga classes. But when we all started hanging out, he's just like, you yoga people are just so much fun, and you're just so like happy and sweet and yummy. Did you say yummy, or did I?
I probably said
You probably said yummy. Yeah. And so Carrie Kelly comes from the yoga world, the corporate world before that. And so I want to just start this conversation by talking about what the role of inner work is, which we do in the yoga community quite a bit, in the political landscape. So we're talking about politics here, but we're going to try to make it fun. But we want to help break down the barriers for people getting into it, because I think there's so much apathy, because so often people think it just doesn't matter, which I can't believe. Thanks, Mom. Go ahead.
Well, I would imagine that you're all here because you have an appreciation for the inner work, right? You said yes to a conference called Lead with Love, which in and of itself is a disruptive and radical concept. And so I think there's a great trend to going inward or turning inward and doing self-seeking and self-discovery, which I think is really great. And I'm no exception. I found yoga at the bottom. I lost my stepdad on 9/11. And yoga was the thing that put me back together again and helped me find meaning in an unimaginable moment. So I have great appreciation for these tools that allow us to like heal and find truth and put ourselves back together again. And I also think that there's a way in which let's call it the trend and the explosion of self-care has kind of gone sideways. Is my boa floating all around me?
It's an aura.
It's an aura. It's gone a bit sideways in the way in which it perpetuates at times a navel-gazing or self-care for the sake of self. And we see that a lot in the industry of self-care, right? We see a lot of propaganda around we are not good enough, and so we have to meditate more or do more yoga or eat more organic or read more enlightened books, right? Like that's everywhere we turn. And what's dangerous about getting caught up in that cycle of sort of obsessive self-seeking is that it's actually just a replication of the system, right? The system that we're in fact trying to disrupt when we turn to yoga, when we turn towards interconnection and community. And yet this work is so essential in this particular political moment because, and I love what they were talking about in the last session around how it's like when we're faced with uncertainty, we want to die. Right? And a lot of what we're seeing play out politically right now is really painful and uncomfortable. And the inner work is like a capacity building program, right? It actually gives us the capacity to hold the complexity of this moment, right? That there's no right or wrong candidate, that there's no right side of an issue or wrong side of an issue. There's no binary. There's a lot of gray area, and there's a whole lot of uncertainty and I don't know. And so how do we build a capacity to hold that? And it also gives us the capacity and the courage to sit with the uncertainty and the I don't know and the leaning into the discomfort. A lot of what Suzanne and Hala and Sean talked about this morning, like that, we have to build that muscle so that we can lean in more. And the other thing I would just say is like, I think what we need now is hope, like there's a lot of darkness and shadow politically, and like how we can get creative by turning inward and by breaking down what's already happening so that we can actually get radical in how we're showing up politically.
That's great. What comes forward for me is also giving a little bit more context about Citizen Well. I just maybe took it for granted that I know what you do so well, and I'm not sure if everybody here does. Will you give us a few sentences or 140 characters or less on why
you'd like me to tweet Citizen Well in this moment?
Just what is it really, and which gives you this platform to speak on this topic so eloquently but also powerfully?
Well, and I think a lot of it comes from my own life experience, but a lot of what I've witnessed in this community, that there is in fact a different way in which we can engage politically, and we define politics as simply a system by which we take care of one another and the whole of society. Like, we actually think it kind of needs a rebrand because of how broken and dark it feels, but that's really what politics is. And so Citizen Well is just trying to re-architect, if you will, the way in which we engage so that we engage from the inside out, so that we engage in relationship and in community, and so that we engage collectively in the ways in which we can aggregate the collective power of this community in particular to disrupt the systems that are holding us back and invent and dream up the vision of this country that we deserve, quite frankly. One of what a lot of what you're trying to stand for here in Aspen, like a country of well-being for all people.
High five. Woo! We got to create the world we want to see, right? I mean, nobody's going to do it for us.
No, they're not.
And I will say that Citizen Well is a nonpartisan organization, is it not?
Yes, it is.
It is. So everybody can relax. Doesn't matter.
So lean back, kick your feet up. We never tell anybody like who to vote for or what side they should be on. We just, we're committed to creating the conditions where people can contemplate their values and how that translates into issues in political engagement, and also engage in ways that are more courageous and conscious. So
vote your values, right?
Vote your values, baby.
So when I put these two together, they do know each other because I put you together before in some strategic planning that we did for City of Wellbeing. But I really wanted to bring Skippy into the conversation because he's such a leader here in Aspen.
Yes.
The young, 29-year-old here. He has created the Aspen Next Gen Commission, which is an advisory board to the city council. And so they talk about how can we engage the 18 to 40-year-old. You got to keep me, I'm kind of aging out here, which is kind of hard, but how can we keep the 18 to 40-year-old community, alive and well in Aspen, because we are threatening to be an old white community of rich old white people. Love you all who are in that category, and it makes for a more interesting place to live if there's some diversity, at least with the age. We don't get a lot of the other stuff here, but I really admire that you've done that, and he's activated so many of the young people to vote. And not only that, you chair the P&Z. I mean, this is a really big deal, the planning and zoning in our city. Skippy's the co-chair, and I mean, numerous other things that he does. So just a remarkable human.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So let's say, I don't know if the question of inner work applies as much to you, but I want you to answer it anyway.
I think it does, and I think it's always important to point out that, I've done sort of the reverse political journey where most people start hyper-local, and I've kind of done the reverse political journey. Most people start out hyper-local and move their way up. My first political experience was actually working on the presidential campaign in 2008 and thereafter for the president. And I've slowly but surely worked my way down to this small group of 8 people here in Aspen. I say that because it's not about the 18 to 40 demographic. It is about all of us engaging together. We've chosen that focus because it needs the most love, because it's the low-hanging fruit that hasn't been getting the water. You guys talked about apathy. I think in many ways what we are witnessing, not just here or in America, but really in the Western democratic world, is a generational problem. Right? We're all pretty familiar with the notion that in wealthy families, the third generation, by the time you get there, 91% have lost their wealth. Why? First generation immigrants or startups really worked hard. Second generation saw their parents driving, had the opportunities, became that first wealthy generation. Second generation had the advantages but saw their parents and kept working. But by the time you get to the third, it's expected. Right? It is an entitlement. And if you think about the Western democratic world, we're the third generation. If World War II was effectively that first wealth-building generation, then everyone in this room here is the third or the fourth generation. And so I think what we need to do is really reconnect with the value of work and the understanding that we are in this room. We get to lead with love because of this system that allows for it, that we created and we manifest. I mean, this is the aberration, right? This is not a given. I've been to North Korea. There was no lead with love in North Korea.